Hello, everybody. Um, Nobody's here yet. That's fine. For those of you who are watching this on like recorded because you didn't watch it live, so several announcements. Number one, Tom, if you are actually watching the video, please comment something very specific and less generic. Just gonna throw that out there. Also, some announcements. This is Fasting Friday, and I know Brian and I are still doing this. This is theoretically our last time. We committed to do this till Easter. You know, the whole Lent thing. Fridays you do stuff. So hopefully, you know, from here on out, if you feel like fasting, say a specific day or something, that you just do that, and then you just commit to fasting again. Fasting. The whole point of fasting is to get God's attention, to make it a special moment of prayer and petition to God over something. And obviously for Easter, it was also in kind of conjunction with the coronavirus situation and whatnot. So that's what we've been doing. So today is dedicated to prayer to the Lord and not eating. Also, I want to encourage you guys that this Sunday, there are two times to be up. One, if you can get up early enough, and I do challenge you to do this, that at 6:30, roughly speaking, is when Pastor will be doing his sunrise service. I don't know how long that'll last, 10, 15 minutes or something. And then again at 10 o'clock, if you miss that and or you want to do both, 10 o'clock on Sunday morning is our regular Easter service. And so I challenge you guys to join us for this. Easter is usually a time to be together and celebrate. And this is the way that we're going to have to be together, is through the internet, through your computers, your phones, and whatnot. And again, just roll over if you're still in bed. You don't have to get up. You don't have to get dressed, take a shower, eat breakfast. You don't have to any of those things. All you got to do is open your eyes, push, your Facebook app on your phone, or get on the internet on your computer, whatever, and then start watching. So uh, the other quick announcement that I have is Wednesday. I would like to have another virtual youth group session. Last time it was mostly just sitting around talking. We didn't get to play many games, and hopefully we can do it for about an hour or so. It's nothing fancy. I just want to be able to see you guys and not go 2 months without having some kind of a youth group. Obviously, what we're doing right now, the daily devotionals, is to supplement something. So we're staying in contact that way, but also just trying to, see you guys again. So that's this Wednesday, 6 o'clock, same as normal youth group, and maybe it only lasts an hour or so. I don't know. I do also want to encourage you guys that today is Good Friday, and it's an opportunity for us to begin the Easter process. Obviously, Passion Week, the whole time, Sunday through Sunday, is sort of doing that as well. But Friday kicks off the big time. This is the day that we remember. I don't want to use the word celebrate, but the day that we remember that Jesus died for you and for me. And then that process takes 3 days: today, Saturday, and then on Sunday morning. And obviously, again, I encourage you guys to come to church on Sunday virtually on the internet to finish off that process. But one of the ways that we can do that throughout the entire weekend is listening to music that's uplifting, music that is very much geared towards remembering what Jesus did for us. So I encourage you guys to look up on YouTube or whatever, Hillsong in Israel. Hillsong is a music worship band or whatever from Australia, and they did a tour through the nation of Israel at different locations, and it's pretty cool. Some of their music is very, very cool. So definitely encourage you guys to look that up this weekend, especially listen to the songs like Hosanna, Broken Vessels, and then obviously one of the bigger ones, Oceans or whatever. But there's just some really good music, very good songs out there. How's it going, Andrew? I hope you guys are doing well. I'm looking forward to coming to Easter lunch at your house. All right, so we have quite a bit to get to today because it's Good Friday, and there's just a lot of content that happened on Friday. Again, we're going through Monday through Friday what was happening in Jesus' life. And I can't move too quickly here because the recording, apparently the internet's not super hot right now, but what was Jesus doing on each of these days? And obviously Friday is the biggest of all the days. It's the day that he finally was crucified. And So real quick, I wanted to read uh, in John, at the end of the Gospel of John, John will write that I've written these things to you so that you may know, so that you may believe in Jesus Christ as your Savior. That's what the entire Bible is about. The entire Bible was written so that we could know God, so that we could believe and trust in his Messiah, Jesus, that he sent, um, and know that it was part of a plan. It wasn't just some guy randomly showing up and saying, I'm the Messiah. No, it was a plan. There was specific things that took place, needed to take place, that was prophesied before, saying, this is the sign. These are the things that you can see and know and recognize that this is, in fact, the Messiah, meaning Jesus. So, one of the things that I wanted to do, and we talked about, I guess it was yesterday, where, on Wednesday, what was some of the things that Jesus was talking about and teaching in the temple? We read from Isaiah 53 because it was very prophetic about the Messiah. Another passage that Jesus could have been teaching from, and I think will kickstart us off a little bit, I guess, very nicely for this devotional time, is Psalm chapter 22, and I'm going to read the first 18 verses because they're all chock full of prophecies about Jesus on the cross and the times that he had on the cross. So let me just begin in verse 1 of Psalm 22. It says, my God, why have you abandoned me? Why are you so far away when I groan for help? That, by the way, is one of the first. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the cross, and we're going to look at the 7 sayings of Jesus. And some of the things that we're reading here are the things that Jesus says and happens to Jesus in those situations. But one of them is, my God, why have you abandoned me or forsaken me? In Psalm 22 here. Every day I call to you, my God, but you do not answer. Every night I lift my voice, but I find no relief. Yet you are holy, enthroned on the praises of Israel. Our ancestors trusted in you, and you rescued them. They cried out to you and were saved. They trusted in you and were never disgraced. But I am a worm and not a man. I am scorned and despised by all. Everyone who seeks me mocks me. They sneer and shake their heads, saying, is this the one who relies on the Lord? Then let the Lord save him. If the Lord loves him so much, let the Lord rescue him. Yet you brought me safely from my mother's womb and led me to trust you at my mother's breast. I was thrust into your arms at my birth. You have been my God from the moment I was born. Do not stay so far from me, for trouble is near, and no one else can help me. My enemies surround me like a herd of bulls. Fierce bulls of Bashan have hemmed me in. Like lions, they open their jaws against me, roaring and tearing into their prey. My life is poured out like water, and all my bones are out of joint. My heart is like wax melting within me. My strength has dried up like sun-baked clay. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You have laid me in the dust and left me for dead. My enemies surround me like a pack of dogs. An evil gang closes in on me. They have pierced my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. My enemies stare at me and gloat. They divide my garments among themselves and throw dice for my clothing. All right, so again, John will write, I write these things to you so that you may know, so that you may believe in Jesus as Messiah, as your Savior. And as we go back into the Old Testament, we could do this all day, but Psalm 22 is one of those big ones where it describes to us what happens to Jesus on the cross before it happens. Hundreds, even 1,000 years, because I think that psalm was written by David. So 1,000 years before it happens. It's written about ahead of time. This was all planned out very specifically. I just saw Pastor Dan and I said, what, a lot of bad things happened on Easter. A lot of bad things happened on Easter. The priests and the Sanhedrin seemed to be able to do whatever they wanted. They beat and then they eventually killed Jesus. But all of it was planned long before. And John and the rest of the gospel writers write out for us what took place to show us that yes, these prophecies were in fact fulfilled when Jesus was on the cross. And it's just amazing to me as you look at Psalm 22 and how his hands and feet were pierced. Like this does not happen unless it was planned out before, and that God knew 1,000 years before many years before crucifixion was even invented, that Jesus was going to die in this manner. Um, and we could easily go through and look at all of the. I mean, there's about 5 or 6 different places specifically that are mentioned in Psalm 22 that happens. But for time's sake, because we're already at the 10-minute mark, let's get to the sayings of Jesus on the cross. There are 7 of them, and the first 2 are, I want to read. No gospel has all of them combined, but we're gonna jump through, I think, 3 of the gospels today as we look at them. Luke chapter 23, verse 34 to 43 says, Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." And the soldiers gambled for his clothes by throwing dice. That was prophesied in Psalm 22. Verse 35, the crowd watched and the leaders scoffed. He saved others, they said. Let him save himself if he is really God's Messiah, the chosen one. The soldiers mocked him, too, by offering him a drink of sour wine. They called out to him, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." A sign was fastened above him with these words, "This is the king of the Jews." One of the criminals hanging beside him scoffed, "So you're the Messiah, are you? Prove it by saving yourself and us, too, while you're at it." All 3 of those statements, the mocking that he gets by, "Oh, you're this Messiah, save yourself," all again prophesied in Psalm 22. Um, Let me get to the first saying, however, which, going back to verse 34, is, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." Um, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, that in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus had a choice. He could choose to save himself, or he could choose to save you and me and the rest of the, and he chose to save you and me and the rest of the world. And the rest of the world did not make it easy for him. That choice, that decision was not an easy one at the moment, because the people who he was saving were beating him up, mocking him right here on the cross as he's dying. They're mocking and scoffing at him. Uh, you know, why kick a man while he's down? At the very least, they hated Jesus, these individuals, and yet Jesus, the first saying that we know that he said, and I'm sure he said more than 7 things, but the first of the 7 statements that are recorded is, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they are doing." It's amazing to me that after everything that just has happened to Jesus, he's been beaten. We could have gone through a ton of stuff, right, today that happened to him, where he was betrayed by his own people, Pilate, all the meetings, the getting mocked, ridiculed, beaten severely, maybe worse than anyone has ever been beaten. And yet his first words is to forgive those that have been doing this to him. Again, showing us the heart of Jesus. The heart of God is not one that of hatred, who is sitting up in heaven looking with a lightning bolt to strike people, but it's a heart that cares about everyone, even in the. I mean, when it takes on new meaning, the verses that talk about that maybe for a good man someone might die, but for you and for me, Jesus died while we were yet sinners, while they were yet mocking him, while they were yet ridiculing him, beating him. He literally died for them and for you and I. And that statement just again reveals the heart of Jesus, that he doesn't wish anyone would perish. Dropping down to the bottom of that passage in Luke chapter 23. I'm sorry, not the bottom, but to verse 40 to 43 says, "But the other criminal protested." So one of the criminals is mocking Jesus because Jesus was crucified with 2 other individuals, both criminals, and deserved it. And they're on his right and his left. He's in the middle. And in verse 40 it says, "But the other criminal protested, 'Don't you fear God, even when you have been sentenced to die? We deserve to die for our crimes, but this man hasn't done anything wrong.' Then he said, 'Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom.' And Jesus replied, 'I assure you, today you will be with me in paradise.'" I mean, just a couple of questions. Number one, how does this guy know that Jesus is the Messiah? And I've heard people say that this is the greatest amount of faith anywhere in the history of the world, because at his weakest, the criminal still saw Jesus as the Messiah. And could anybody see? I mean, he wasn't standing with an army behind him saying, "I am the Messiah." He was on a cross about to die. And yet this man recognized, yeah, this is the Messiah, and I believe in him. How did he know that? Maybe Jesus, maybe Jesus saw him in the cells and talked to him. I don't know. But somehow this man knew it, and he still placed his faith and trust in Jesus. And then, and this is always an amazing thing. Jesus says, "Oh, yep, today I will see you in paradise." And one of the struggles that I've had as a Christian is, especially when you lead someone to the Lord, do you've heard many people say, "Repeat after me," and then hear the right words to say, or uh, how do you know you're saved, and that kind of stuff. And what do you need to have works to be saved? Do you have to have like a certain amount of works to know that you're for sure saved? It's encouraging to me as someone who has led people to the Lord. It has nothing to do with my words. Uh, this guy, this criminal, literally just looks at Jesus and says, "Remember me." He doesn't. Jesus doesn't say, "Repeat after me." He doesn't repeat some prayer that he heard from somewhere else. He just looks at Jesus and says, "Please remember me." And that was enough. That was enough. And because again, it's about the faith that the man is placing in Jesus, even at Jesus' weakest moment. It's not about works. This man dies before he could do any works. This criminal on the cross, could offer Jesus nothing. He couldn't go door to door. He couldn't save other people. He couldn't do great works and help the poor. He did nothing. He dies. That's it. Except that he also placed his faith in Jesus. So it's very encouraging to me about, when we struggle with sin, and maybe we're too lazy, or we're not doing what we should be doing, or whatever. It's about, our salvation is based on our faith in Jesus and alone, and that's it. And this is a great illustration or example, not illustration, a real life example of where a man simply said, "Please remember me," and Jesus says, "Today you'll be with me in paradise." Maybe they were able to go together. I don't know what happens when you die, but maybe Jesus did have somebody he was with when he went into paradise. It's just kind of a cool thought that even at this darkest moment, Jesus isn't really alone in that sense. I mean, there is this other dude here looking to be saved. All right, so we'll jump over to the third statement of Jesus. It's in John chapter 19. Verse 25 to 26 says, "Standing near the cross were Jesus' mother and his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother standing there beside the disciple he loved, he said to her, 'Dear woman, here is your son.'" So basically, this is one of those moments that we could go a couple different ways with this. We could say, where are the rest of the disciples? Why is John the only one? Where's the rest of Jesus's family, his brothers? Where are they? I know that they had problems in the past, that his brothers were kind of upset with him, that they didn't get with Jesus's program until after the resurrection. And the second statement, Andrew, was when Jesus says, "Today you will be with me in paradise." The dude says, "Please remember me," and Jesus says, "I will remember you today. Today you and I will be in paradise." That's what he said. So, anyways, the third statement is Jesus telling John, "Please take care of my mom." And again, where the rest? Where's everyone else? It's Jesus' mom and his aunt, Mary Magdalene, and John the disciple. That's it. Where are the rest of them? I know Peter's out crying somewhere because he didn't betray, but he denied knowing Jesus. But where are the rest of them? I can't believe that they're not there. And maybe they're there and it doesn't record it, but man, it's tough. That's rough. That I just said Jesus isn't alone because there's a criminal next to him, and obviously his mom is there, an aunt and whatnot. But still, man, that's tough. That's tough. But in this moment of pain, instead of thinking about himself, he thinks about his mom. He thinks about his mom. Who's going to take care of my mom? And it even says that from that day forward, John took Mary into his home. Can you imagine a greater honor than having Jesus ask you to take care of his mom? and then doing that, having the ability, the honor of taking care of Mary for the rest of her life. Um, that's just fantastic. An, an amazing responsibility that John was able to have. And Jesus was, again, not thinking of himself. He was thinking about his mom at that moment and how important she was and how she needed to be taken care of. I'm not going to be here anymore. So, and Jesus even knew that after the crucifixion, he was going to be around and he could tell John then. So it seems to me that Jesus is making this statement more for their comfort than for anything else, that he's saying, look, you're in pain right now. You're scared. John, take care of her, please. Give her some comfort in this moment. And again, just showing how amazing Jesus is, and thinking of others. So that was the third statement. The fourth statement that is recorded is in Matthew chapter 27, verses 45 to 46. It says, at noon, darkness fell across the whole land until 3:00. At about 3:00, Jesus called out with a loud voice, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you abandoned me? And the amazing thing about this statement is I don't think Jesus is a liar. So I think on some level, the Father at this point has abandoned Jesus. The big punishment when it comes to sin is abandonment by God. It's not that you spend eternity in a lake of fire. It's that, in fact, I don't even know if there's an actual lake of fire, but what it is the punishment of you being separated completely from God. Everybody, whether you're a believer or not, right now is not completely separated from God. We are separated because of sin, because of stupid Adam and Eve. But there's still a presence, a sustaining force from God that keeps us going. That even if we're not a believer, we don't maybe know why, we don't know understand what's going on, but it's still there. But when you die apart from God without salvation through Jesus Christ, then that goes away. You go to a place that is called hell, and you are then completely separated from God. That is the punishment of sin. Jesus took mine and your punishment for sin. And so on some level, the Father abandoned Jesus. And so Jesus then cries out, as in Psalm 22, verse 1, Father, why have you abandoned? Why have you forsaken me? I can't even imagine what that's like. Jesus took the ultimate punishment, not just a beating, not just the ridicule, not just being stripped naked and nailed to a cross, but he literally took the punishment for my sin, the ultimate punishment for my sin. Is overwhelming. Looking at, did I say that was the fourth statement? Fifth statement? The fifth and the sixth statement, I'm gonna read them together. Verse 28, John chapter 19, verse 28 to 30 says, Jesus knew that his mission was now finished, and to fulfill scripture, he said, I am thirsty. A jar of sour wine was sitting there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put it on a hyssop branch, and held it up to his lips. When Jesus had tasted it, he said, it is finished. And then he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. So the fifth statement is, I am thirsty, because he has been, hasn't seen water all day, and he's been bleeding out, and just his mouth is dry. And so they give him something to drink that's not great, and then he says, it is finished. Which, let me I guess quickly state that with those two statements, what do we learn about Jesus is that he literally was physically thirsty, that he was fully man. He was fully God, and he was fully man. And I know that's hard to understand, but the man 100% of Jesus was thirsty, because he just took the world's greatest beating, and he hadn't had anything to drink probably since the supper. And somebody, I don't know, in a mocking way gave him something to drink, and then he said it was finished. And that's the greatest statement that you and I could hear, read, however we receive that message, it is finished. The process, the plan, the the thousands of years from Adam and Eve, the plan that was established since man's first sinned to that moment had then been completed, and Jesus could say, "It is finished. It is finished." The plan of salvation for all mankind, for you and for me, was done. And then it says that he committed his spirit to the Father. But in Luke 23, verse 46, it says, "Then Jesus shouted, 'Father, I entrust my spirit into your hands.' And with those words, he breathed his last." Father, I entrust my spirit into your hands. That's the seventh statement by Jesus recorded. Father, I entrust my spirit into your hands. Um, it's a quote from, I think, Psalm 31. And basically, it is a statement. It is saying, for better or for worse, in good times and in bad, I entrust my spirit to you. And it's a statement that you and I can make and follow Jesus, following Jesus' example, that my faith from first to last is always in God. And Jesus at the end, I mean, the plan is worked out perfectly. It is now over. What's the next thing to happen? Jesus has to, and I don't, the question of where did Jesus go when he died? Does he go immediately to heaven to be with the Father? Does it, what happens? I don't know, and the Bible isn't very clear about that. But what we do know is that Jesus showed that faith in the Father in that last moment, in the weakest of moments, right before he dies. I commit my life to you, my spirit to you, and that is the same sentiment that you and I can have. And we're basically going too long here today, but the bottom line is that statement: I commit my spirit to you, Father. Whether it's a statement that many people on their deathbeds may make, but it is a commitment statement, and it is the ultimate commitment statement. I give my life to you. I give everything to you, Father. That's the kind of faith that we need to have. And what Jesus did allows us to even have access to God so that we can even make that statement to him. That our faith, our trust, our lives are in God. And I challenge you this Good Friday, Dark Friday, that number one, as a believer, if this is true for you, that you understand that you have committed your life to God. And if you haven't made that statement of faith, if you haven't taken that step, like the criminal on the cross, just saying, "Please, Jesus, remember me." If you haven't even made that simplest of moment of step of faith, I encourage you to commit your spirit to God, that you are committing your life to him. And then allow God to have control of your life, even whether it's in life or in death. And that brings me ultimately all the way around to the coronavirus thing and the situation that we find ourselves. Again, there's a lot of fear that's going around right now, and mostly the fear is because people have death staring them in the face. Don't be afraid. Commit your life to Christ. That's the message of Easter, following in the steps and the example of Jesus, even on the cross. He just commits himself to God, and then he breathes his last, and he is dead. But Sunday is coming. It's all part of the plan. Well, his mother, they bring his body down. I'm sure Mary, his aunt, Mary Magdalene, John are weeping, and we can in this moment be discouraged by what has happened to Jesus. We know that Sunday is coming, and that Jesus rises victoriously from the grave. That the death cannot hold him, and that Jesus is alive today by his own hand, by his own power. But that is only information if you have not committed your life to him. If you have not given, again, it's a statement that many people have made. Father, I commit my spirit to you. I commit my life to you. Please follow that example and throw your complete trust into God. With that, we are way long on this one. I just want to encourage you guys today. Please join us on Sunday at church if you don't have one already. VictorBaptist.org is the website. You can find us on the Facebook page. I will probably put it on the youth group page, the service, the live stream. Please join us this Thursday as we celebrate the victorious resurrection of Jesus. As I said before at the beginning with the announcements this Wednesday, I would also like to have a virtual youth group meeting just to get together. And I won't say we won't have any kind of a lesson, but it will be a very short, brief one. And again, this weekend is the weekend that we celebrate Jesus' death and resurrection. But we can do that literally every day of the week, and we can definitely do it every weekend, every Sunday. I want to encourage you guys, if you have not done that, if you have not made your relationship with God serious, please do so even today. Tacey says, truly I say to you today, you will be with me in paradise, is the second statement. Yes, that is the second statement. Did I not say that? Or did I say something else with the second statement? Since we're at 31 minutes, Tacey, I will allow you to go back and either rewatch how this goes out. I got my stuff, by the way. Ultimately, I think it's called JesusIsChrist.org, which is, by the way, a great great website. I believe that's where I got those statements. Let me look it up real quick. Okay, it's not on my phone right now, so I'll have to get back to you on that one, Tazy. But the first one was real quick. Father, forgive them, in verse 34 of Luke chapter 23. So that was the first statement. And then, yes, the second statement is, in fact, Tacey, you are 100% correct. Today you'll be with me in paradise. Yes, that is yep, 100%. So anyways, with that, we are, again, kind of long here. What is Tacey saying? You said Andrew just asked repeated. I encourage you all youth to read the Gospels of these events. Yep. And yep, that's some great encouragement, Andrew, to go back and read the accounts in the Gospels, because we didn't even read anything from Mark, and there's some good stuff from Mark. So miss you guys. I will be praying for you, and just take the opportunity today, tomorrow, and Sunday to really contemplate and think about Jesus and committing your lives to him. With that, stay classy, Victor, and hope to see you guys soon.